Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. I'm glad that you could be here on a Friday, sunny afternoon. And I'm sure everybody's ready to looking at their watch, ready to go for the weekend. But appreciate your time today and excited to go over the material that we have prepared. So I'm Byron Martin, CEO of Technologize, and I have Justin Spitz with me, the cybersecurity expert. Thank you, Justin, for coming and joining with us today and being part of the presentation. We're going to jump right into the meat of things as we don't have a lot of time, but we wanted to make sure that we covered the core essentials of what we're covering today. Now, if you haven't heard about the recent Colonial Pipeline ransomware attack, I mean, you must be living in a cave or on a deserted island, because this is all over the place, all over the news. And what it's recently confirmed that they paid $4.4 million in ransom to the bad guys, to the bad actors, to the hackers. Now, they're not the only ones, though. Within the last few weeks, chemical giant Brenntag also paid $4.4 million in ransom. The Colonial Pipeline ransom attack has really gotten everyone's attention. It impacted so many people and organizations directly on a national scale, from skyrocketing gas prices to no gas at all, to supply chain impacts and impacts to travel, all over the place. And we can see the impact. It's all over the news. However, similar attacks are happening to small businesses and mid-sized businesses all the time here locally. It just isn't newsworthy. And, and it's not a national emergency. But to that business or to that organization, it's a crisis. It's a big deal. With COVID pivoting how we work overnight, cloud or software as a service growth went into hyperdrive, and it is now the new standard, and it's generally accepted. This is where the market is moving. For some, this can be a little scary, a scary change to make, but it's not shying. It's not something to shy away from. It's something that we're going to have to embrace. There's three critical things, however, because we also need to understand the gaps, the business risks, and what to do about it. Asking the right questions is key. Is cloud data vulnerable to ransomware? If so, how? Is cloud data vulnerable to accidental or malicious deletion? And then what happens to cloud data tied to employee accounts after they're gone? By 2022, 70% of organizations will have suffered a business disruption due to unrecoverable data loss in a cloud application. One thing over the last decade that hasn't changed is that humans are still the weakest link. Attackers take advantage of human nature by social engineering and using our emotions against us. And they are good at it. They're organized and they're well-funded. The three most common causes of successful ransomware breaches are phishing or spear phishing, poor user practices, and lack of end-user cybersecurity training. So even cloud data is at risk. Although cloud or SaaS, software as a service, is where the market is moving, and many believe that Microsoft or Google are protecting their data, you'd be surprised to know that they are not. Moving to the cloud introduces a certain amount of risk into a business. SaaS data or cloud data, like the data that lives on users' laptops, mobile devices, is still subject to human error, malicious deletion, misconfiguration, and ransomware. And when the problems come up, what do we do about it? Or how do we prevent it? Have you ever heard of Ransom Cloud? Now, there's a white hacker, really famous. His name is Kevin Mitnick. He is the chief hacking officer for a company called KnowBe4. He did a live demonstration on a ransom cloud strain in which it encrypts cloud email accounts like Office 365 in real time. This strain uses a smart phishing email and token to trick the user into gaining access to their cloud email account under the ruse of a new Microsoft anti-spam filter service. Once your employee clicks accept to use the server or to use the service, it's game over. It's done. They have access, and as you can see on the graphic here, it starts to encrypt all the emails in that mailbox, and it will give you a message. Oops, your email. What happened to your emails? They're encrypted. 47% of data loss is caused by end user deletion, and 20% of data loss is caused by a malicious act. In a 2020 survey, IT professionals reported these top 3 cloud apps as the most common ransomware attacks on the cloud, on cloud data. 64% of them experienced attacks within Microsoft 365, 54% experienced attacks within Dropbox, and 25% of them reported attacks within Google Workplace. Microsoft was the hardest hit. This isn't really a surprise due to the volume of business due to the volume of businesses that rely on Microsoft 365. How many of you have users using OneDrive, Google Drive, or Dropbox running on their office computers or their remote computers? If one user gets ransomware anywhere in the world and it has any of these file sharing apps installed on their computer, the data is susceptible and the ransomware will quickly spread to the cloud and across the organization. Microsoft works off of what is called a shared responsibility model. The message is simple. Microsoft is responsible for their cloud, and end users and businesses are responsible for what's in it. As you can see on the slide here, one side is Microsoft, and the other side is the business IT and end users. Microsoft takes full responsibility for their operating systems, their networks, their applications, their virtualizations, their data centers. And if, for example, if there's a natural disaster or power outage resulting in any sort of cloud hardware failure or software failure, they've got your back. They're guaranteeing uptime and availability. That being said, protection of the data and administration of the applications falls on the end users and the businesses. All the scenarios we talked about earlier, data being deleted or compromised due to basic human error, hackers, ransomware, or disgruntled employees on a deleting spree, all are highly impactful, but it's left up to the end users and the business IT to have their own plan on how to recover and how to manage those situations. Why users are exposing their cloud data to the risk of permanent loss? I mean, why are people putting their stuff in the cloud? Well, there's often a misconception that cloud is impenetrable, that it's bulletproof, and that organizations such as Microsoft or Google, they just by the nature of their size, their scale, the amount of money they have, or whatever misconception there is, that they somehow have you and your data protected. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and both companies make this clear. Microsoft, for example, in their SLA specifically states that they are not liable for any type of data loss due to application outages, nor are they liable for any data loss associated with deprovisioned accounts. According to Section 6 of their SLA, they go as far as recommending that you regularly back up your content and your data that you're storing in their services and in their apps by using a third party. Microsoft or Google can't determine when a document is deleted. They don't know if when it is deleted or a folder's deleted, if it's intentional or malicious, and they can't tell the difference between, anything from a Word doc to a Google Sheets, or even an entire folder. It's kept in a trash recycle bin for a while, for a short period of time, and then it's purged in their systems. People think that this deleted folder or recycle bin should be the solve for their data recovery needs or problems. But I know, and I've seen from personal experience, that's not the case. Oftentimes, you don't realize it's gone until it's way past that time period. It's already been purged and it's out there. I mean, I've got multiple stories where, we had a business call and they were under some legal obligations to have this information and data for an old employee that they used to have. But it was months ago, and they had it in their mind that, hey, can't we just go to the recycle bin, or can't we just call Google and get that information restored? And there wasn't anything I could say. It was gone. It had been purged a long time ago. So essentially, you put your data in the cloud, it's your problem if something goes wrong, when it's not anything that has to do with their hosting environment. Google operates very similarly to Microsoft. If you pay attention to their language, in order to understand where the limitations exist in Google Workplace data recovery, you want to look at the fine print. They are clear that it's limited. There's a limited time from when files are deleted and from when they're deleted by the user when the system, the actual Google system, will automatically purge that, and then it's permanently deleted and it can never be recovered. I'm going to turn a little bit of time over to Justin. He's got a few things that he's going to show us on the back end on how this impacts the users and business organizations, and some of the methodologies that we've taken to help mitigate that risk. Justin, take it away.
Great, thanks there, Brian. Byron. So from here, what I'd like to do is run everyone through our SaaS protection product, so we can start talking about the different ways that we can actually put this risk of ransomware and show you how you can actually recover that using this platform. So from here, I would like to do a quick screen share, if you wouldn't mind. Let me just switch gears. I am running into an issue there. All right, so jumping on in, we are going to see the status page here. And this is really the main dashboard of the platform, where we'll see the different services that are being protected, whether it be the OneDrive, Exchange, SharePoint, and even Microsoft Teams. For today's conversation, I would like to start in the OneDrive. So jumping on in here, we're going to find our list of our users, but we'll click into Joe's account because Joe recently just had a ransomware infection. So jumping on in here, the first thing that we would do is use the snapshot tool. And the snapshot tool is really where you're going to find your 3 daily snapshots, one in the morning, afternoon, and at night, so we can roll back to those previous points in time. And this can be leveraged in those ransom type situations, as well as accidental deletion and malicious deletion. And really how ransomware interacts with Microsoft 365 is in a couple different ways. So one being more on the Exchange side, and then one being more on the OneDrive and SharePoint side of things. And for Exchange, as Byron did put it, is let's say that you have a user who receives an email saying, hey, we'd like to implement this new anti-spam service. Please click the link. They do, which are then brought to a legitimate looking list permissions in which they accept because they think this email is coming in from the IT team. But really what they've just done here is granted access to a third party. And from there, the data is encrypted and a ransom note is sent. So the situation on the mail side, it's more of a permissions hijack versus traditional malware, but the hacker does have access to those emails. And another situation is ransomware encrypting those files that live within the OneDrive or even SharePoint. So again, you have a user who clicks on something they shouldn't have, whether it's a link or an attachment. Now from there, the malware is going to download to the local computer, begin encrypting the sync data, and then the encryption is going to sync back up to the cloud. And in this scenario, if you go to Microsoft, they're just going to tell you to revert based upon version history. What they are leaving out here, though, is just how manual that process actually is. Because first, you have to change the user's password, sign into their account, and start reverting each file based on that version history. And if we're talking about hundreds or even thousands of files, that's just going to be an absolute nightmare to deal with. And just to be clear here too, is that ransomware does not create its own version. It's going to be infecting that last edit, most recent copy. So we'd have to roll back to the edit before that. And we're really going to find this impacting those items that might not even have a version history, whether it's a JPEG, PDF, or any type of newly uploaded content because these would now be locked and there's nothing to roll back to. So natively, Microsoft's going to have a tough time. And that's really where we can utilize the snapshot tool. And what we'd have you do is clean out that live environment after the infection. Say it happens on Friday here. Then we would roll back to a point in time prior to the event being Thursday night, and we can go ahead and use that restore tool. And from here, we can restore Joe's entire environment that was prior to that encryption event, being the entire snapshot, or maybe a couple folders or even files were encrypted. We can then also get granular here by grabbing those. And once we do actually click on that restore button, what you would see within the environment is going to be a restore folder with a date and timestamp on it. And there's a couple reasons why we do it this way. So first off, it's going to keep things organized so that you can confirm that all the proper data is there, and then we can move it wherever it needs to go or even rename it. Additionally, it's also going to ensure that we will be non-destructive to the environment. So with this restore, the folder structure and those sharing permissions will be intact. And
Justin, how can I ask a question real quick? Because that applies similarly to Google Drive as well, correct? As far as the recovery restoration process.
Yeah, exactly. So both products, whether it be Microsoft 365 or even Google Workspace, are going to have very similar functionality. And actually, I can just pull up what you would see within the Google environment too. So let me just get open the Google Drive here just to show you, but it's really going to be that same thing, just being the restore folder on this end within the Drive environment.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Yep. And in addition to the restore, we do also have the export button. Now, this is just going to bring these files down locally, but if you are running into any type of deletion event, whether it's ransomware, accidental deletion, malicious deletion, the restore is really your best bet because it's a couple clicks versus going through an export re-import process there. And then we also have the backup now button, and this is an on-demand backup. It's in addition to your 3 daily backups. You can use it as many times a day as you'd like. And I do see this getting used in those termination scenarios. Maybe Joe here, he's on his way out of the organization. You could jump into his account, hit backup now, just to save yourself that one last clean copy in case he does start deleting things on his way out the door. And outside of just the OneDrive, I'd like to also show you what we have to offer on our Exchange recovery. And we're going to see a lot of the same as far as the UI. So clicking on into Joe's account, because he did just have some of those emails get encrypted, first thing we do, jump right on into the snapshot tool prior to that encryption event, being that Thursday night. And from here, we can either grab the entire inbox that was encrypted, or we can get granular down to those individual emails. We can then use that restore tool on this end too, where we're either pushing back those selected items that we did have, or Joe's entire mailbox being the snapshot. And as far as the mail recovery goes, we are going to see that restore folder within the Exchange environment, and this is going to keep that folder structure intact as well. And in addition to the restore, we do have the export feature if you would like to throw these emails down to a PST, and the backup now button for that on-demand backup for those malicious type deletion events. Now, we talked a decent amount about how you can leverage data SaaS protection for these data loss scenarios, but we do also have a pretty nice use case revolving around how to actually maintain departed user data as people do come and go from the organization. So let's just jump back here for a moment. So let's say that Joe, he just leaves the organization and you want to go ahead and just get rid of his license, whether it's to cut costs, or clean up the environment. When you do so, Joe's account in SaaS Protection will automatically archive within a 24-hour period. And we would just see a box appearing next to his name so we can distinguish an active versus an archive user. And we will go ahead and maintain Joe's data for however long you do set the retention. And we're not only holding on to the mail data here, but also those files in his OneDrive. They have the same functionality on that end. So let's say it's a year down the road and the team realizes, hey, you know what? Joe actually had some emails that could be beneficial to us moving forward. We can then hop into Joe's archived account, which would really have all that same look and feel as the active account, grab those items that the team needs, or even just push his entire mailbox or snapshot over to his manager, Lawrence. So really what the platform can be in this sense is more of that organized location. It's outside of production and it's easily searchable. We can get granular versus doing any type of data dump. And when I do restore this to Lawrence, it's going to grant him ownership of these emails. So it can really just be an easy way to move data around as people do come and go from the organization. And lastly, I would like to just run you through what we do have to offer on the SharePoint and Teams backup. So jumping on into SharePoint, we're going to find our list of our sites along with any group sites. Now, what we're really covering here on the SharePoint side is that content layer, because what we've noticed is that a file or two can easily slip through the cracks and go unnoticed for maybe 6 months to a year down the road. And for that content layer, we are going to be backing up the templates that live within SharePoint, any site lists, site pages, along with these site assets, and of course the documents. So we can get granular here by grabbing those individual files, or we can either restore those back to the original SharePoint site or to another one of your choosing if you are migrating data around SharePoint or consolidating a couple site collections. Export to bring these down locally, backup now for the on-demand, and the snapshot tool for your 3 daily backups. And the same thing is going to go for our teams. So clicking on into a team here, we are going to find the content, which is really that team site. And we can go grab those items and then push them wherever they need to go. So that will conclude my demonstration of Datto SaaS Protection and really how the system can be used for ransomware recovery, accidental deletion events, malicious deletion, and even how to improve your current offboarding strategy in maintaining that departed user data. But from here, I'd like to hand the conversation back to Byron to talk about a little bit more about how you can protect your business today.
All right. Well, thanks, Justin. I, again, appreciate it. So, a couple tips, a couple other things that are important that we like to communicate, and some of this might be repetitive, but along the same theme of what we've been talking about, one of the big things you need to look at is assess and understand your business risk, where it resides in the cloud, and understand the risks now and the gaps, and not falling trapped to some of these assumptions that a lot of people naturally do. Policies and procedures, re-examine your policies and procedures, pay attention to emerging threats, and keep your organization and customers secure. And then other things, basic things that make a huge difference, ongoing employee training. I mean, this is something that is not going away. And we've already stated that the majority of attacks come through phishing emails and through users clicking or acting on something. And typically that's 90% or more breaches are caused by human error, human interaction. Create and enforce strong password policies. We talk about that all the time. Business continuity around backups, and this is really what we've talked about today, and making sure that we're backing up cloud information, cloud data, and not assuming that Microsoft or Google have you protected. And then using a multi-factor authentication. I can't tell you how many times this has been a saving grace for companies who a user clicks on something, not thinking, not being wise, and but having multi-factor authentication saved their bacon, because even though they gave up their credentials and information, the bad actors were unable to attain access because of the multi-factor authentication requirements. The other big thing that we're really trying to do just for the community as a whole, to help with education and information and letting people know about the growing threats and the evolving threats and staying up to date on it. We are offering a free 6-week course of 18 things you can do to keep productive, stay productive, but also be secure, especially in this new remote work scenarios that we're dealing with. And we invested a lot in this, in videos and homework and policies and checklists and things like that we're just giving away, that we're just sharing. And you can sign up here by going to our website and typing /18 things. So I wanted to leave, we have just a little bit of time. If there's anybody that has any questions, we can certainly answer any questions if you've got some. Otherwise, again, we appreciate everybody attending and listening today, and happy that you could attend.